Hey Credit Warriors, welcome to the show, and we've got a reaction video for you today. I love a good reaction video. Today we're going to be watching this video, how Hampton Inn became Hilton's secret success. If you don't know, Hampton Inn is definitely one of the lower end brands, or maybe mid to lower brands in Hilton's portfolio. They're super convenient, and I've said at many a Hampton Inn. In fact, some of my first ever I think my first ever points redemption was a Hampton Inn, I think in the Poconos in Pennsylvania. And so anyway, but apparently it makes the most money for Hilton out of all their brands, which is super interesting. I never would have guessed that, but I guess it kind of makes sense. You know, the economy brand that they don't charge much per night, but everyone, you know, stays there because it's just so convenient. But anyway, without further ado, let's actually watch the video.
This is the Hampton Inn. The red trimmed sign, the familiar beige box.
The familiar beige box. That's kind of funny. You saw the first shot of that video actually was the waffle maker, which is kind of a signature thing that they have at all of the Hampton Inns. And the thing he said about the red trimmed sign, I never thought of that, but I guess it is kind of, I mean, I never consciously thought that there was a red trim, but I guess it is kind of iconic. When you see it next to the side of the road, you know it's a Hampton Inn.
Inside, a waffle station you man yourself.
Okay, yeah, there we go with the waffle station. Okay, so apparently that is a big selling point. I didn't know that, but apparently it is. Although other hotels like Courtyard by Marriott, etc., have waffle stations now, but I think Hampton Inn, or at least what they say later in the video, I think they were the first to do it.
Crisp sheets, light switches right where you'd expect.
Ah, okay, so they're really talking about the sort of the consistency. And I think that's pretty important, actually. That's a big reason why a lot of people go to McDonald's, right? Because it's the same everywhere. They don't necessarily like it any more than any other restaurant. But it's the same. You know what you're getting. And that's kind of true with the Hampton Inn. The light switch is always in the same place. Logical place as well.
How did one of America's most predictable hotels become one of its most profitable?
Okay, so yeah, it is one of the most profitable hotels in the US, despite it being most predictable.
In the 1950s through the 1970s, there were two types of hotels: full service and motels.
Ooh, I've always wondered that. Comment below if you didn't actually know what a motel actually was, because I've always wondered it. It's like, what is a motel? Like, what, you know? I guess a motel, well, at least at the beginning, was one where you park, and then there's a little office where you check in, and then you come outside and you walk along, you know, outside into your room. You don't actually go into a corridor or something, and it's like roadside, I'm guessing. So originally, if what he's saying is correct, if what he says is true, there were just two types of hotels. There were classy hotels and there were motels. And at that time, I guess because people didn't travel as much as they do now, right? So maybe that was why you only had two types. You didn't have this plethora of different like tiers of hotel. I mean, you could think, right now, there's probably at least 5, 6, 7 different levels, right? All those brands like Hilton, Hyatt, they all have different categories of hotel. You know, you just look at, well, take, you know, Marriott, for example, like the credit card gives you a 35,000 free night certificate, but then there's also the welcome bonus. That bonus is still going, by the way, on the Marriott card, where you get the 50,000 free night certificates. So that's like a step up, and then you've got like a few more steps up after that. So you've got much more tiers, but I guess at the beginning, there were really just two tiers of hotel: classy hotels and motels. Service
offered on-site dining options in addition to other amenities, while roadside motels, the more budget-friendly choice, offered the bare essentials, a room.
The bare essentials, a room. He didn't need to make essentials plural, like just the essential, just the room. It's just the room.
By the 1980s, the average American traveler was in the market for something that better fit their need.
Not everyone wanted to spend the money to stay in a luxury hotel.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So when you just had these two options: either you spend a load of money to stay in a luxury hotel, or you got to stay in a sort of trashiest of the trashy motels. That's basically the two choices you had.
They didn't like the other option either, which was, you know, the roadside motel, some of which had been cutting edge in the 50s or 60s when they were first opened, but 20, 30 years later, they were a little tired.
I can't imagine any of those places being cutting edge when they first opened, to be honest.
The dream began in 1983 to develop a new kind of hotel designed from the ground up with the guest in mind.
Okay, so now they're getting into talking about how Hampton Inn actually came to be. A new kind of hotel. I recognize those drawings, actually, the kind of characteristic architecture of a Hampton Inn that's, I guess, been copied by a load of other, you know, hotels like Courtyard by Marriott and etc.
Clean, simple, and smart. a good night's sleep, and a free breakfast at all one reasonable price.
Yeah, the free breakfast, it's always good to have free breakfast at a hotel. I mean, I know that when you get on the really classy end, they can't really do free breakfast because it's just so expensive. But Hampton Inn, you know, when there's at least a basic cooked breakfast on offer, I think that really helps.
In 1984, the first Hampton Inn opened in Memphis, Tennessee.
They had 100% booking, and they knew they had a good product.
Yeah, when you have 100% booking, that's incredible. I mean, how can you be 100%? That's ridiculous. You know, my Airbnb, it's popular, but it's still at like maybe, you know, 70% on a good month, maybe 80% maximum. And in the bad months, it's like 50. But, and it's still making money, you know? So at 100% booking, they must have been absolutely raking in the dollars.
Hampton was the first to offer a free complimentary breakfast as a standard.
Okay, so there's the breakfast thing again. And they were the first to offer it. Wow, I didn't know that. Free complimentary breakfast as a standard. That's awesome.
The American consuming public was more on the go, and this breakfast fit that need.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because actually, if I think about my own travel habits, when I go to a Hampton Inn, it's normally for like a ski trip, or, you know, I'm not really planning on spending much time at the hotel, actually. It's normally just to go there to sleep and then in the morning leave quickly. So yeah, if you are on the go, a simple, quick breakfast that you're not really sitting there savoring the food, you just like shovel down some bacon and eggs and waffles and stuff and get out of there. So that makes a lot of sense, right? Like a free, simple breakfast that you don't care that much about because you're not spending extra money on it, but it fills you up. It's a product that makes a lot of sense.
It proved widely popular.
You gotta love a place where you get a lot of space for not a lot of money and the breakfast is free.
Yeah, I love those old commercials, actually. We always watch those old Amex commercials. There's a lot of them on YouTube, but this is kind of the same style. It's pretty funny.
A few years later, Hampton Inn became the first hotel chain ever to offer a 100% satisfaction guarantee on your night's stay.
Wow, actually, I didn't know that too. I guess they've still got this, but it means basically that if you're not 100% satisfied, you can get your money back.
It's invoked an average of about 1 to 1.5% of the time.
Wow. Okay, so that just means that 1 to 1.5% of the time, they give away a free room, right? So if they're on 100% occupancy, I guess that would count as like 98.5% occupancy because 1.5% they're giving away for free because people are claiming that guarantee. There was a thread on Reddit about this. Has anyone made use of the 100% guarantee? If yes, what was the reason, etc.? So let's read a couple of these. I was a beneficiary of the guarantee, but not intentionally. I was staying at Hampton Inn, New Orleans. When checking out, the front desk person asked about my stay. I casually mentioned something that had happened the night before, and when I got my folio, portfolio? I don't know, what my folio. I noticed they'd comped me for one night. That's cool. What does this guy say? Okay, so this guy complained that they didn't have extra pillows. Guest comes in, checks in, asks for extra pillows. I tell him I'm sorry, but we're out. I'm happy to get some pillowcases and towels as a backup. He proceeds to tap the room key card on the desk. It had the 100% logo on it and said something along the lines of, well, I think this is in order then. And yeah, it seems the guy gave him the 100%, gave him the money back. So it seems there are people that use it. I don't know, I would be a little bit like not really wanting to use it for something so simple as just pillows. But I guess I have stayed a lot of nights at Hampton Inn. So maybe if the people using it, you know, if you use it one night, you might have stayed 10 or 20 other nights at full price. So, you know, maybe it's not actually so much like giving a free room to that person. It's like, you know, the percentage over time is less. Anyway, let's keep going.
Just 3 years after Hampton Inn opened, Marriott introduced Fairfield Inn. And in 1990, Holiday Inn followed with Holiday Inn Express.
Okay, so you got some competition. I didn't realize Fairfield Inn was the direct competitor though. I assumed it would be Courtyard by Marriott, or maybe Marriott has a few different properties that kind of on that same level as Hampton Inn. And Holiday Inn was later as well. Isn't that interesting? So you've got the hotel, you've got the motel, and then the sort of Holiday Inn, Hampton Inn style hotel. That's why the song, right? Hotel, motel, Holiday Inn. 3 types of hotel.
Everybody go hotel, motel, Holiday Inn.
By the late 1990s, Hilton, one of the largest hotel companies in the US, recognized the market for middle-class travel was growing, and they wanted in.
Okay, so this is where I realized that Hilton didn't originally own Hampton Inn, okay? Like, because obviously they're looking at Hampton Inn, they wanted in, all right? So they didn't initially own it.
Hilton needed more of those mid-tier properties.
In 1999, Hilton bought Hampton Inn's parent company for about $4 billion.
Right, yeah, oh, so they just bought it. And that makes a lot of sense because they needed more of those mid-tier properties. I wouldn't really call it mid-tier though. I always look at it as low tier. But I guess it's sort of the low end of mid-tier. If you're going to call it mid-tier, it's definitely kind of the bottom end.
Hilton took the Hampton brand and elevated it.
The By Hilton endorsement allowed us to gain even greater credibility.
Yeah, Hampton Inn by Hilton. It's definitely got a good ring to it, actually. The power of branding.
Hilton's acquisition in 1999, Hampton has grown from around 1,000 hotels to over 3,000 worldwide.
Wow, 3,000 worldwide. That's a lot. That really is.
But the cost and responsibility of maintaining these properties doesn't actually fall on Hilton. It falls on the franchise owners.
Yeah, you wouldn't think that, would you? But like actually, most big hotel chains that you stay at, they don't actually own the property that you're staying at. And in a lot of cases, they don't even manage it. I know a guy who invests in hotels. That's what he does, right? And it costs millions of dollars, like 20 million for one hotel. But yeah, he invests in them. The hotel doesn't own it, right? He owns it. He owns the building and the franchise. But he doesn't even manage it himself. So there's a separate management company that manages the property. So you've actually got three different things going on. You got like Hilton, who is the franchise and the brand, right? And the booking network. Then you've got the owner. And then in many cases, you've got another separate management company. So you got like three different groups, three different interests in this one property. It's kind of interesting.
In their current portfolio of 8,497 hotels, only 47 are owned or leased by Hilton. That's less than 1%.
Wow. I guess they need to manage a few themselves so that they can kind of like test things out at their own properties. Like if you want to test out like a new waffle flavor or a new breakfast item or different sheets or whatever, you'd probably want to do it at ones that you have full control over first. Because otherwise your franchise owners might not want to do that, right? They might be like, hey, we're making good money. I don't want to, throw some variable into the mix,
I traveled extensively for work, stayed in hotels all the time, but never thought about hotels as being an attainable investment opportunity for me.
Oh, so this lady is actually an investor. She's a hotel owner. And I think she's going to tell a little bit of that story.
When I got to my room, it was beautiful, clean. I went to bed thinking this is a great value. And I literally woke up the next morning with the epiphany that I should buy a hotel.
And I bet it worked out pretty well for her, because what I've heard from people who own hotels that I've talked to, I've heard from two separate people who own these franchises for these, like 100-room hotels, and they all say the money's really good.
When you put together this great brand that was a leader in the market, and you layer in the strength of Hilton, it just becomes magical.
Wow. Magical for her wallet and bank account, I think, too.
Cost of developing an 89-room Hampton starts at $15 million, not including the land.
Okay, that's reasonable. 15 million bucks. I guess that's for the building. He said 89 rooms, and then obviously you'd have to buy the land, and depending on how prime real estate you want, you could spend a lot or a little on the land. But obviously, if you're in a poor location, you're going to have to. You're not going to make as much money, so it's probably in your interest to, buy a really nice piece of land in a good position.
But the returns are remarkable. Last year, the average Hampton location outperformed competitors by 21% in the US.
Wow, 21%. But why is Hampton so strong? Because they say competitors, so I assume it would be Holiday Inn, Fairfield Suites. Why is Hampton Inn itself so strong? Maybe it's because they started early.
People are more interested in the big luxury hotels. But, this is really what the engine of Hilton's growth and profitability has been over the time.
Right. That's what I was saying earlier, wasn't it? Like, obviously, the luxury hotels are more interesting, but actually, the day-to-day hotels that people do for, business or little weekend trips away, like Hampton Inn, are the ones that are getting, large amounts of bookings. And thus making the most money.
Hampton was actually the first brand to go to all white beds with signified cleanliness.
Yeah, that's it, isn't it, in a hotel? You do definitely want to have white bedding. People always, on the Airbnb forums, people always say that, like white sheets on the bed, because you could see if there's a stain. You could see if there's a stain on there or something disgusting on there or whatever. So, obviously the downside is as soon as you get even a slight stain on it, if you can't get it out with like distilled vinegar and bleach and stuff, then you just have to throw it away and buy new ones. But it does give the guest peace of mind.
But it wasn't until the mid-2000s that Hilton claims they became the first mid-scale brand to offer free hot breakfast items to guests.
Okay, so the hot breakfast came in the mid-2000s. So what was offered initially was like coffee, muffins, croissants, that kind of stuff. But in the mid-2000s, that's when they brought in the hot breakfast. You know, to be honest, when you eat it, the quality is really not there. It's not that good quality, but it fills your stomach. So it's, you know, you grab a 10-minute breakfast at Hampton and you don't have to go and eat breakfast somewhere else. So it's a pretty good benefit.
Have you tried the strawberry waffle at Hampton yet? I like to make mine with an extra touch of sliving.
An extra touch of what? Sliving? Okay, I have no idea what that is. But anyway, Paris Hilton, good to have a celebrity on your team who can probably do free ads, right? I mean, I guess she was probably paid, but you know, it's kind of like someone from the home team, you know, appearing in the ad.
And in 2010, Hampton was the first brand to introduce make-your-own waffle stations on a large scale.
Right, okay, so there we go. They were the first brand to introduce the waffle stations in 2010. Now everyone's doing it. But yeah, it's really good. My kids love those waffles.
Hampton serves over 30 million large waffles in a year.
According to Hilton, that's equivalent to 12 Empire State Buildings.
Is that really that impressive? 12 Empire State Buildings? I mean, if you just get a lot of anything and you stack it up, it would eventually be incredibly high. So I don't know whether that statistic is really that impressive or not, but that's a lot of waffles. They're obviously really popular.
The secret of Hampton's success is simplicity and consistency. You know what you're getting.
There we go. That's that point again. Simplicity and predictability. I don't know what he said. I can't remember. Anyway, the fact is, you know what you're getting with the Hampton Inn, right? It's like McDonald's. The menu items are the same all over the world. They taste exactly the same. Well, actually, maybe not all over the world, but all over the US, all over the West, they're exactly the same.
Barack Obama once said that Hampton Inn is his favorite hotel brand because he knows where the light switches are.
There you go.
Easy.
That's funny. Yeah, I totally agree with that, actually, because some hotels, it really takes you ages to find the light switches. Like, they're not always in intuitive places, especially if the hotel was built, you know, a few years back and then renovated and updated. Things might not be in the right place for, you know, the beds were initially supposed to be in one place and then you move them to somewhere else after a renovation of the room, like they're on the opposite wall or something like that. The light switches might not be in an obvious place, okay? Or if just when they built it, they just, you know, didn't really plan it out well. So it is nice. I do really appreciate that, especially like when you're going to bed. Doesn't it just annoy you if there isn't a light switch right next to your bed, so that like the last thing you can do, you're already in bed, maybe you read a book for a little bit, you watch some YouTube videos, and then you've got to get up to turn off the light. Like how, you know, that's ridiculous, all right? I want a light switch right next to my bed where I can just switch it off and doze off to sleep.
So what's next for the brand of simplicity and cleanliness?
Hampton does continue to open hotels in the United States, but its biggest opportunities for growth are abroad.
Right, yeah, definitely. Probably they've saturated the market a little bit in the United States. I mean, I'm sure there's still room for some new ones to open, but especially because when they're new, they feel even nicer, right? They got that new hotel smell and stuff. But, you know, going overseas and, you know, trying that brand in new markets where they don't have that saturation yet is also going to be really, really good.
More than half of Hampton locations under development are outside the US, with China now the brand's second biggest market.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually. China being the second biggest market. If you ever look on the Hilton free night, on the hotels that you can't use the free night app, for some reason, I don't know why, but all the Hampton Inns in China, you cannot use the Hilton free night there. Doesn't really matter because they're going to be very cheap per night anyway, so that actually would be a waste of the free night because you could use it like Conrad, Waldorf, Astoria, etc. But just a little tidbit of information, you cannot use the Hilton free night at any Hampton Inn in China. Not sure why. Maybe they're owned by one company or the franchise, you know, the franchisees are powerful there, or there's some local law. I don't know why, but yeah, that's just the case. But you know, the thing is, people in China think a lot of Western stuff is like classy. Like in China, people go on dates to McDonald's, right? Because to them, it's not like low-class fast food. It's actually, ooh, it's like novel, it's Western. Wow, let's go and, you know, eat a hamburger at McDonald's. How, you know, how upper class or whatever, right? So they probably view Hampton Inn as actually quite a nice hotel just because it's a Western brand. And all right, well, we've watched the entire video pretty much. I cut out a few of the more boring bits, but to conclude, I guess the moral of the story is to be profitable You don't actually necessarily have to be the most classy hotel. You just have to be right for the market, right? And if the US public is, like he said, they're on the go, people want these options where they can get a good night's sleep and get a convenient breakfast before they shoot out the door in the morning, Hampton Inn really hones in and fills that gap, right? Or the gap in the market that used to exist when they first started and is still filling that gap at the moment today. So it's kind of a great business principle that we can learn from this. But you know, you don't have to be the most classy, but try not to be the most cheap either. Try to fit in and give the market what they want. And I think that's what they're doing. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll put a link to the original video on Bloomberg's channel down below if you want to check out the whole thing without me blabbering at you all the way through. And do subscribe, like I said, to this channel for more videos on luxury travel and regular economy travel, US credit cards, and personal finance every week. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.